Internet, and welcome back to my vlog. This is episode 3 of my Big Damn TV Geek vlog. I was hoping to have this up much sooner than now, but as you can maybe tell by looking around here, I moved last weekend, so life has gotten in the way of all of the fun things we like to do, like watch television and make videos and things like that. So I'm back and will hopefully be posting more regularly in the future. Anyway, last time out I asked you guys to pick a show you wanted me to talk about on this vlog. And I got a couple of commenters that suggested Farscape, so that is what I went with, and that is what we're going to talk about this time. Farscape is a show that I'd never seen before. That's one of the other reasons this took so long to get done, was because I had to watch a couple of episodes in order to be able to talk with you fine folks about it. I really didn't know much about it going in. I knew it was a sci-fi show. I knew it was from the early 2000s, and that was about it. Didn't really know what to expect going in. I have to admit I wasn't super stoked about it despite having been recommended it before, because there's nothing worse than dated looking sci-fi. Especially since I'm a CGI nerd, I notice when stuff looks terrible, so I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't love the pilot. It, like a lot of pilots, does a lot of establishing characters and worlds and rules of the universe and things like that. But the second episode I really felt was a huge improvement over the pilot, and I certainly would not be opposed to going back and watching more. I don't know that I'm rushing to go watch more. I have a lot of other things on my list that I'm going to get to first, but I think I'll probably go back to it in the future. For those of you who aren't familiar with the show, it tells the story of John Crichton, who's a NASA engineer running an experimental flight into space to test some theories he has about spacey things, when he gets sucked into a wormhole. He ends up in a far-off space realm, stuck with a bunch of crazy space creatures, and, hijinks ensue. I was a little bit surprised to see the show start on Earth, only because, the little bit I knew about the show, I just assumed it was Star Trek-y, everything taking place in a spaceship, in space, whatever. So when the show opened with John walking through the halls of NASA, I was like, maybe this show is not at all what I thought it was, but ultimately you end up in space, so that's that. The second surprise I got early on in the show was finding out that the Henson Company did the creature design work for the show. If somebody had told me that early on, I would have been on board, because I'm a total Henson and Muppet freak. I love that kind of work, the practical, like makeup and puppets rather than CGI creature, because I think it tends to age better. You can tell old CGI. You look at old Pixar films now and you can kind of be like, those are old techniques, that looks lousy. And even like the wormhole in this show it looked ridiculous. It's very dated. But the puppets all look great, because a puppet's a puppet. And it's a creature, and it's real, and it's sitting there. So it was really cool to see some of the stuff that they did with some of the characters that are full-on puppets, some of the effects work on faces that's all practical, so that was really cool. As far as the pilot, like I said, I wasn't thrilled with it, but I did like some of the stuff that they did. I really liked that John fell in with a group of criminals and kind of misfits, rather than ending up captured by peacekeepers right off the bat. Peacekeepers, for those of you that don't know, are the kind of the law in the universe that he ends up in. They're humanoid, but they're very robotic the way they operate. It's very like, follow the letter of the law, we have no emotion, blah, blah, blah. So I think it would have been much less interesting to see him captured by them than to see him kind of fall in with this crew of escaped criminals and have a guy like Dargo around who at any point may decide, you're a threat to the freedom I'm trying to have, I'm just going to snap your neck. I liked the callback at the end of the pilot to John's NASA training and his theory that he was testing before he got sucked into space, and that he was able to use his theory on the Levanthian to get the crew out of trouble. Thought that was kind of a nice touch. There were also some things I didn't like. I didn't love how they initially built the relationship between John and Aaron. I thought it was kind of cliched, although I came around in the second episode. I thought they did a really good job of kind of building that arc, even over 2 episodes. But initially it was like, I am the law, you are strange, and I must capture you. And then, he mentioned, don't you have emotion and compassion? So of course when they got caught, she showed a glimmer of compassion, and it felt very like, of course that happened, and didn't appreciate that. I don't, I also just feel like the guy out for vengeance trope is a little tired. When John bamfs into the new dimension, he takes out one of the peacekeepers, who just happens to be the brother of, like, the head peacekeeper, because of course he is. So that guy, like, starts going crazy about finding and capturing and killing him. And I could just do without the vengeance angle, because it's just not interesting to me. The second episode, though, I thought was so much better. It did a great job of immediately starting to establish what the relationships between these characters were going to be like, make you start caring about these characters right away. So I really appreciated how immediate the improvement in the show was. The plot of the second episode is basically that the ship gets taken over by these creepy bugs who can clone themselves by getting a sample of the DNA of anybody on board. They're doing so because they're trying to complete their reproductive cycle, which requires them to crank up the heat in the ship, which is killing Aaron, because the peacekeepers have some crazy heat stroke type thing they suffer from, which basically makes them lose all their memory and go into some awful state that she wants to be killed before she gets into. The high stakes of the episode really allowed for everything else to get stripped away and the character dynamics to build. Dargo has to allow himself to let other people help him. Rigel has to take a step back from being, I'm just going to paint and be a monarch, and actually help the group, and then realize that he can maybe be a leader when he, bridges the gap between the crew and the bugs. And it's really great. There's a lot of really good moments in the episode that I appreciated. As far as the characters go, I was really impressed with how quickly I became very attached to these people. John is kind of dweeby. He's always making offhanded remarks about stuff on Earth that he knows no one's going to get, and I'm a fan of punny humor, so that made me giggle. Erin, you think at the beginning that peacekeepers are all these terrible people, and she could not possibly have a redeeming quality about her, but over the course of the 2 episodes, you can see that she's really starting to come to terms with the fact that she needs these fugitives, because she's also a fugitive. So I can see that there's certainly going to be an arc there. Dargo is like the perfect example of what I mentioned before with the criminals, having criminals on board. Can you trust him? Who knows? He's like Jane in Firefly. You'd like to think he's come around to having these people on board that have helped him to get away from being a prisoner, but I don't know. I have a real soft spot for both Rigel and the pilot because I love watching the puppets work. And even beyond that, I find Rigel hilarious. He's very much the humor center of the show, just because he's very, I am a king and I shouldn't have to do any of this and you need to get me back home and all of this stuff. And it's very entertaining. And there's Zan, the priest. Probably said that wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments. I only watched 2 episodes. But she just brings this wonderful calm and zen quality to everything, which is a wonderful balance to how uptight Dargo is and Rigel is, and I really love her. So that's what I thought of Farscape. I may or may not go back to it in the future. At the very least, I'd be curious to see what happened to the wonderful characters I just told you about, even if I'm not like super stoked about the story necessarily. And it is, like I said, looks dated. It looks like it was made in the early 2000s, but certainly if you're into science fiction and these types of stories, it would probably be something you'd like. If you're interested in watching the show, I know the first season's on Hulu. I'll leave a link in that box down there. Please leave comments if this was your idea. I definitely want to hear what you have to say. If you think I'm crazy, if I completely screwed up pronouncing everybody's names, if it gets better at a certain point so I should keep watching like right now, Just let me know what you think. And as always, please like and subscribe and share and follow me on Twitter and all of that good stuff. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.